So today we're talking about the 1973 film The Exorcist, a horror classic that I have never seen before until a couple hours ago, where I flicked it on and watched it. So this is quite fresh in my brain. After I watched it, I did just the slightest bit of research, found a few fun facts, a few tidbits, and a bit about the history of the movie and what the bad guy is supposed to represent. But overall, just my initial reactions to the movie is it's just one of those older horror movies from like the 70s. They're just made so well, and there's a reason that they're genre defining. It kind of reminded me a bit of The Wicker Man, where it's ritualistic. It has themes of religion. This one way more overt, I would say, than The Wicker Man. And just some crazy stuff goes down. In this movie, I think that, oh man, the dreary atmosphere of Georgetown was awesome. And it's like such a simple narrative, but just done so well. And there's still a lot of like subtle images and references hidden throughout that just like worked really well. So in general, I think that the kid performance, what's her name? Linda Blair, that was like one of the best child performances of all time. I mean, I don't know if that's just a unanimous thing that everybody agrees upon. I haven't really read too much of these comments at all, but she was like insanely good. And like some of the scenes where she is being possessed and like the effects that they use to like toss her around, the makeup and just like her floating, as you can see here, I guess that's like a subtle spoiler that, okay, yeah, she floats at one point. But man, it was all top notch, the stuff with her. The voice was super creepy. The effects, yeah, they were gross. But the kid herself, even the scenes where she's not possessed, she was really, really good. And she absolutely killed it. And I read, a bit of the information that I read was that in one of the scenes where she is being like thrown around and her body's doing these unnatural things, they were using these ropes or strings or something, and it actually severely hurt her spine or back, and she had like issues for a long time after. So that kind of sucks. Yeah, she was phenomenal. You can find them talking about what it was like working with a kid with such adult. Yeah, some of the stuff that she says is just like absolutely insane, vulgar, crass. You name it, she says it. And I mean, I think it needed to be that extreme in this movie because you have these priests coming in, trying to figure this out, trying to do this exorcism, and she's just yelling the most nasty things at them. And just the contrast to that works so well. And I think that just adds to the entire atmosphere. I mean, the bit of research that I did, again, I heard stories of people walking out of the theater. And, I mean, yeah, I guess for the 70s, I mean, I was never alive back in the 70s, clearly. But, I mean, yeah, some of the stuff she said, some of the stuff that goes on, people walking out of the theaters, I can definitely see why. I think they overdubbed her, though. I don't think she actually said it. Yes, they did overdub her. That is something I also saw as well. I think it works. I like that there was like a few different voices going on. It wasn't just like one clear voice. Oh, she's possessed. This is the voice. There's a different like mix of voices there. And then there was one scene. Okay, I'm just going to go into spoilers now. There was the one scene where they played the tape backwards and then it was somebody talking backwards in English. And I mean, yeah, that stuff was cool. So let me just start from the very beginning. The very beginning started in, where was it? Iraq, I believe. Iraq or Iran. One of the two I's. And we have Max von Sydow's character, and he's just digging up some relics. He's just going, just looking in the ground, looking for some cool stuff. And then he finds this circular, like, necklace piece, and he takes note of it for some reason. And then he goes around and he meets with, I believe it said it was his son. And he says, oh, I wish you could stay. And then in that scene, the clock stops. Oh, he also found this other relic that's like this head, which, I mean, is pretty important. The clock stops. He's like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And then he goes out. He looks dramatically at the sunset and this one statue. And then we go to Georgetown. And when I watched it initially, I was like, okay, what was the point? What was the point there? But it really does come back and tie in. And from the little bit that I know about just the entire lore of the movie, it's just like setting up his character as the Exorcist. He is the titular character, Max von Sydow. So yeah, it's set up later that he has this ongoing bout with this demon who is apparently named Pazuzu from Babylonian mythology. Thank you, Google. And so that does provide context, and it made me like that first scene a lot more because he doesn't say too much in that first scene. He kind of, he goes around digging, he looks dramatically, the clock stops, and then he looks at the statue, which is also supposed to represent Pazuzu, as well as that little head that he found, that carved head that he found in the ground. Yeah, we have those scenes, and also he is in old makeup, which, when I was watching it, I was like, Max von Sydow looked younger 40 years later in Star Wars The Force Awakens. How does he look like this right now? But he was wearing makeup. So that makes a lot of sense. Really good makeup. It was very convincing. Like, I didn't know it until I looked it up afterwards. I was like, wow, that's crazy. Rest in peace to the man. He was a legend. So yes. Then we cut to Georgetown right after we leave Iraq. And now, Georgetown, we're with our main characters. We're with Ellen Bernstein's character, Ellen Bernstein. Living legends. Born in the 30s. She's awesome. Love her. And, she kills it. Her character isn't just like typical parent when their child gets possessed by a demon in other movies. I guess that's kind of like a stereotype, but like she was very complex. Like she's an actress, which it doesn't really come back too much, the fact that she was an actress. But her character, it just worked well. The way she was dealing with everything, she was just like absolutely going crazy. And like when she's talking to the doctors and she's lashing out at like the doctors and the priests and everything, you see where she's coming from. You see her frustration. And she killed it as well. Mount Rushmore for the all-time great female leads in horror movies. She's absolutely killed it. So we cut to her, and she's just, the first 30 minutes of hanging out in Georgetown could have been cut down. 100%. It's like her daughter Regan comes up to her and she's like, yeah, I got to ride this horse. Can we get a horse? And, oh, you silly Billy. No, we can't get a horse right now. We live in Washington. And just like random stuff. And then play with the Ouija board. That was kind of cool because it was kind of referenced later. But, I felt like that just went on for a bit long. And then we also talked to Jason Miller's character. Oh, I meant to look at his character here. His character, Father Damien. So we're hanging out with Damien a bit, and then he goes back to his mother's house, and she becomes a relevant character. And we spend a lot of time on his relationship with his mother, even though it is a kind of a side piece, but there's a lot of time spent on it. It makes sense because his journey in the end, you can tell that it definitely heavily relies on the fact that he feels guilt that he left his mother, and he kind of feels like he's blaming himself for not being there for her when she passed away. But again, I felt like that middle area when we just get to Georgetown for the first time, just, lingered on a bit too long. And then we get to Regan going absolutely crazy. And the scene that I cringed at the most, the scene that I guess scared me the most, or just made me the most uncomfortable, it wasn't really that scary. It was just when she's like getting operated on. It was just so uncomfortable. They stick the needle in her neck, and they clearly cut around it a bit. Like they put the needle right up to her skin. Then they cut to this side angle where you kind of see it in there, but you can tell it's kind of like fake stuff. But then blood is like spurting out of it, and they have to insert this thing, and she's just like so uncomfortable. Oh, man. That stuff made me grimace. Oh, that was horrible. So they're doing all these experiments on her. She's going crazy, yelling the craziest stuff. Oh, some of the stuff that she does, like with the cross where she stabs herself with it. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, that stuff was clearly a lot for the 70s, and it needed to be a lot to stand out, to become this like iconic film. I think a lot of it is because of how just like out there it is. And I think that a very clear message in this movie is pro-religion. And I think that, I guess in the 70s compared to now, a lot more people were religious. And the fact that it got away with these insane images and this insane language, because at the end of the day, it is about not only using the power of Christ to exorcise this demon, but also a lot of the characters are going along this journey trying to find their faith. We have Jason Miller's character. What's his name again? Damien. His character, at the beginning, he says he believes that he's lost his faith. And then Ellen Bernstein's character in the movie, she says near the beginning, or I guess kind of in the middle, where they're talking to one of the doctors, that, oh, are you religious? Is your daughter religious? And they're like, oh, no, not really. But in the end, religion becomes the thing that saves them. And yeah, a lot of the characters' journeys is to find that religion. So my theory, this is definitely not fact, is that it was still critically acclaimed at that point, which I don't even know if it was. I'm not doing research. I'm just like, this is just my train of thought right now, completely just like raw, that because these messages at the end of the day were pro-religion, that they beat this demon at the end of the day, and they were able to get away with the crassness and the imagery as shock value, where at the end of the day, it still had good Christian values. That's just my thought process, but I don't even know if it's true. But it was there. It was definitely there. And yeah, we had that pendant thing, which I was confused for a second, like that necklace, because we had Max von Sydow's character. He found that in the rubble in Iraq. But then Jason Miller's character, Damien, actually had a separate necklace with the exact same thing on it. And at the end of the movie, we have it being found in the bedroom by Ellen Bernstein's like sidekick, and she gives it to her. And so it's kind of like a protection necklace from the demons, because when Damien sacrifices himself and gets the demon to possess him instead of Regan, the necklace falls off. There's a very clear shot of the necklace falling off. His protection is now gone, and then he is now taken by the demon, thrown down the stairs, you know. And so it's like a protection symbol. And I was confused for a second because it is the exact same one, or it's the exact same style, but it's supposed to be separate ones, I'm pretty sure. What else was I going to say? Oh yeah, throughout the movie, there are those like insert overlays of like the demon's face, Pazuzu's face, just like popping up on the screen. And they worked really well. There was just a few of them that I noticed. I'm sure there's probably some that I missed. And then overlaying it with Regan's face at some points. I mean, yeah, just like some of the imagery, just like those subtle things, they just worked so well. They worked really, really well. And then near the end, we have when, I forget who's looking up at the bed, where she's like in the bed. And then there's a very clear, like that statue that Max von Sydow character was looking at the very beginning of the movie. He looks out of the sunset and the sun is blocked by this statue, supposedly representing the demon. It like is in the bed as well. So there's so much referencing the fact that this demon is inside of her, and they use the imagery. So it's like you could have had this narrative where it's very clear that there's a demon inside of her. You know, she says all this stuff, the voice has changed, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like these subtle things with the imagery that is like showing the representation of the demon inside of her. And just like in these pivotal moments, like when they're doing the exorcism, you see the half of her face overlaid with the demon. When Damien is getting inherited by I don't know why the word inherited came to mind. He gets, the demon comes onto him. He sees his like mother in the window. He's like doing it for her because the demon also had the voice of his mother for a bit. He's thinking of her when he's doing that. There's just a lot of subtle imagery things that I think tie into the characters very, very well. And I think it worked really well. I did also like just going around with the police trying to like figure out what to do. Ellen Bernstein's character just like trying to find all these different avenues, what's going to make the situation better. Some of the just like the scenes of her interacting with Regan, there's just a lot of crazy effects that worked really well. Like the dresser just like coming at her, the chair just like getting slammed against the wall. Like it's pretty simple effects. It's just like things being dragged, but like they were at very stark moments that I think worked really well and stuck out pretty well. They get the Exorcist along. They get Max von Sydow. He comes into play. I love the detail of him spraying, or Damien's character spraying water on him, saying, "Oh, it's holy water." But then the demon reacted to it, and he's like, "No, it was just tap water. It might not be a demon." But then it was, and the demon's just playing tricks on him. That was good. Like when he was doing that, I was thinking, it's like, what if he's tricking him right now? And he was. But man, it was just so much fun. Like it's not. The more that I watch horror movies, the idea of a horror movie has shifted since I was a kid. Because when I was a kid, I think most horror movies that I was just like, that were talked about were just like the shock ones at the time. And they're just like kind of the more modern, in-your-face jump scare horror movies. And I was like, oh God, I hate those. Those are just absolutely terrifying. Like they're just in your face. But like there's so many movies. I've watched a bunch of horror movies now and have become a horror movie fan, that these more just like, I don't want to say situation, these more like stressful, atmospheric, meaningful horror movies, I think just like, oh, I'm loving them. And my idea of a horror movie is definitely shifting, because like The Thing, is it a horror movie? Is it an action movie? I don't know. Nope. Jordan Peele's Nope. Is that a horror movie? Kind of, yeah. It definitely has a lot of themes. Like, Get Out isn't really like that terrifying. I'd say Us is a lot more scary. But Get Out, just the cool concepts that horror allows people to do, just like works so, like Get Out. The ideas behind Get Out are so cool. And specifically in The Exorcist, the ideas here are great. The imagery that they use is enhanced by the horror themes that are in the movie. It's not really that scary. It's not really that scary. There's just a few uncomfortable moments, like gross moments, were the moments that kind of stuck out more than the horror moments. And so, I don't know. My idea of a horror movie has kind of shifted, and I don't know. I've grown to love the genre a lot more. Glad that I watched it. Very happy that I did. Another classic off the list.